multiple stories in one here. And we're starting out actually with, we're going back to chapter 30, and we're going to talk about the speckled sheep and the speckled animals. So Genesis 30, 25 through 21, and it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own place and to my land. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know the service which I have rendered you." And Laban said to Jacob, "If I have found favor in your eyes, I have proven by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Then he said, "Specify your wages and I will give them." And Jacob said to him, "You yourself know the service which I have given you, and how your cattle and animals have prospered with me. For it was little which you had before I came, and now it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you for my sake. And now what shall I do in order to provide for my own household also?" And Laban said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything if you will do for me the thing which I will tell you. I will go back to feed and keep your flock." Okay, now what is this? This is Jacob's proposal. "I will pass through all your flock today and select for myself from it every speckled and spotted lamb and every brown lamb and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my wages. Just as my innocence is evident today, so it will be in the future when my wages are brought before your presence. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the white sheep, that shall be counted stolen by me." And what this means is that Jacob, when Jacob gets his wages and when he's ready to go, we'll see, he's taking speckled animals, sheep and goats. And that's what he's telling Laban right now. And Laban said to him, "Yes, let it be according to your word." And now this is Laban that did this, and he removed that day the he goats that were speckled and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and everyone that had some white on it, and all the brown among the white sheep, and entrusted them to his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now, this is okay. Let's go on and see, because what Laban took the speckled animals, okay, and so in Laban's mind that made it so that there wouldn't be any more speckled among his flocks, because they left just the pure white and I think some black ones there. Okay, so now this is what Jacob is doing, because Laban agreed to the speckled animals because there weren't that many of them in the flock, and said, okay, because Laban was not a nice guy, okay, and so he said, okay, that's why he agreed. There weren't very many of them, okay, and he took them away so that so that there would not be any more bred or born. However, Laban didn't know what Jacob knew. So, and Jacob took some fresh white rods of almond and poplar trees and peeled white streaks in them and made the white appear, which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the running water, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, and they conceived when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth lambs that were speckled and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the speckled and spotted, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves and did not mix them with Laban's flock. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger of the flock did conceive, Jacob laid the rods in front of the sheep in the troughs, that they might conceive by means of the rods. But when the sheep were feeble, he did not put the rods in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man, this is Jacob, grew exceedingly rich and had large flocks, men servants, maidservants, and the asses, camels, and he asses. Okay, now this story provokes really no one has been able to explain exactly what this is. However, let's just go back here. Okay. Remember, Jacob had worked with these animals for 14 years at that time. All right. And so, and he watched them breed. So he knew a little bit about breeding, okay? And he had to know that there were speckled lambs produced and sheep produced in there. So his little trick, and we'll talk about that in a minute, with the bows and whatnot, Jacob knew that. But what he says, and he says it later, but I've gone ahead and hold on. Okay, I jumped ahead and picked out Genesis 31, 10 through 13, because he attributed to this knowledge basically, and what he should do. I think he probably already thought about it, what he should do, but once again, he has a dream and he communicates with God. And here it's ahead of time. It's later, because he's telling Leah and Rachel what about the dream. Okay. And it came to pass at the time when the sheep conceived, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams that leaped upon the sheep were speckled, spotted, and striped. And the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob, and I said, here am I. Then he said, lift up now your eyes and see. All the rams that leap upon the sheep are speckled, spotted, and ring-streaked, for I have seen all that Laban has done to you. I am the God of Bethel, where, remember, he talked to Jacob there, the place where you anointed a pillar to me, and where you vowed a vow to me. Now arise, get out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. So it's basically it's God. Okay, Jacob is deceiving Laban. Yes, that's another deception. But it's like God is saying, well, but not really, because he actually served Laban for 20 years and built up his flocks for 20 years. And really, he never really received any wages, except he worked for Leah and Rachel. And so anyway, but that's where the knowledge came to him. Now, but all right. Okay, Jacob knew, and if you think about this, like I say, none of the Bible research and stuff has really been able to say exactly what this was. And of course, some people say, well, he couldn't get that information from God, which of course he could. And but Jacob knew that crossbreeding, black and white, would produce speckled. And that they say that's his knowledge. However, there was a belief at the time, and it was called visual stimulation. And basically what the belief was is what they saw is what it would what the sheep, the lambs would come out as. And so the branches on the outside were dark and the white on the inside. Now, this came from a Torah commentary. And so I'm sure there may be others that have tried to explain it, but basically not. But the thing about it is, Jacob knew that he could produce speckled lambs and sheep from Laban's sheep. Now, if you think about if you know anything even like about breeding dogs or any, you have something that's called recessive genes, and even sometimes if you got two dogs that are exactly alike, unless they've got a really strong background and all of the recessive genes have been taken out, so I guess all I'm saying is that in reality, Jacob knew that, and it's not an impossible thing. It isn't like, oh well, and he got the idea and the encouragement from God, and that God would understand that, he was kind of deceiving Laban. But so that's the story of the speckled animals. And essentially what happened is when he would breed, and he had his animals split off, and all of his were speckled. And he split them off, and of course Laban didn't really know that. He didn't really pay any attention. But okay. And we have a picture of Jacob's lambs. Now they say, I researched this, and in Canada there are some sheep breeders that say that their sheep that kind of look just like this are hereditary descendants of Jacob's sheep, and they've sent their sheep over to Israel, and so that's the physicalities of it. That story has bothered me for a long time, because obviously when we're taught that, even with Dr. Erica and Dr. Lumsa, basically, nobody knows. And so anyway, I just decided to research that. Okay, so now, so Jacob has started out, and okay, and Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's has he acquired all of this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban's countenance toward him was not as it had been yesterday and the day before. And here we go. The Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock and said to them, I see that your father's countenance toward me is not as it has been yesterday and the day before, but the God of my father has been with me. And you know what I have worked for your father with all my strength. And yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God has not permitted him to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flock bore speckled. And if he said thus, the spotted shall be your wages, then all of the flock bore spotted. Thus, God has selected some of your father's cattle and given them to me. Okay. Now, and we had the dream, so I'm not going to repeat that. So we go to 14. And Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, we have no portion or inheritance in our father's house. Behold, we are counted by him as strangers, for he has sold us and has squandered also our money. For all the riches which God has selected from our father belong to us and our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives on camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his wealth, which he had gained in Padan Aram, to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. So basically, Laban became aware of the fact that these large flocks that Jacob had built up, because when they talked about the wages, Jacob went back for 6 years. Okay, he went back for 6 years to get all this breeding done and to build up his flock. So basically, we talked about the dreams. God has continuously told Jacob, return home and protect them. Now, if you were here with Abraham, and when God told Abraham, I will protect you, when he was moving from Ur down to Canaan, God always said, I will protect you. Same here with Jacob. Okay. In addition, 2 other factors here. Okay, Rachel and Leah. Okay, Jacob lived in Laban's household, and that's why they're saying, look, even though it's your wives and your and your sons and whatnot, they still belong to me because you were in my household. And so that's what they're saying. All right. And Rachel and Leah, they were his wives, but there was never a dowry because they were in his house. So Rachel and Leah, and they really didn't like Laban, their father, as you heard before. And so they needed a dowry, or they believed they did. And the other big factor here, as we'll see next, was that Jacob did not tell Laban that he was leaving. And if you can think about it, you probably know why. However, and so the next little story here is about the idols. All right. Now, Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole the images that belonged to her father. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean in that he did not tell him that he was going. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and crossed the river and set his face toward Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him on Mount Gilead. Now, this is interesting here, why it's bold. And God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream by night, and said to him, take heed that you speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And you did not permit me to give a farewell kiss to my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. I could have done you harm, but the God of your fathers said to me last evening, take heed that you speak not to Joseph either good or bad. And now you are on your way because you longed for your father's house. Yet, and here's the problem, okay? Why did you steal my gods? Okay, the idols. So you go back up to 19. Rachel stole the idols, the images, but Laban didn't. Jacob didn't know she did it. And so, but Laban knew they were gone. And so he says, all right, so, but why did you steal my gods? So some more deception. And only this time it's Rachel. All right, so let's talk about these gods and these idols. And basically, they were figurines. All right, they were just, and we have them today, and people use them today. They were, small in the shape of men, and then they used them kind of like, I don't know. Some people now have a little Buddha statue. We have little altars, whatever, and that's the way they used them. And even though Laban was part of Abraham, and he probably did believe in the one God, but they still, and I don't think he was the only one, they still kept this thing with all these figurines and statues, maybe kind of like a St. Christopher medal. And so they did, the belief was that these figurines were a form of protection. And so why did Rachel steal the idols? Okay, it's not real clear why she did. She may have stole them for a dowry. Okay, and then there's the theory that she wanted to stop Laban from idolatry. Okay, there's that, and then of course the idea that the figurines were protection, as they say that's why Laban was so very angry, because he counted on those. She had stolen his security, his little security blanket or whatever. But that's why she did. And of course she didn't dare tell Jacob, because Jacob would have told her, we don't do that. So, and why didn't Jacob tell Laban he was leaving? Well, obviously, Laban found out that he had built up all this wealth and everything, and Laban probably would not have liked that very well, and may not have let him leave. Okay, now. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, this is why he didn't, this is why he left. Because I was afraid, for I said, perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. with whomsoever you find your gods, he shall not live. In other words, Laban is looking for his idols, okay? And Jacob has said this, with whomsoever you find your gods, he shall not live. Now, keep in mind, he did not know that Rachel had these. I mean, he was being sincere, whatever. Moreover, in the presence of our brethren, point out whatever I have that belongs to you and take it for yourself. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two maidservants, but he did not find the gods. Let's see. Okay. So he went out of Leah's tent into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's saddlebag and sat upon them. And Laban had searched all the tent, but did not find them. And Rachel said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before you. In other words, for him to look for them in the camelback, for I am with child. Nevertheless, he searched, but did not find the images. Now, just the interesting, because I read, because this is the Old Testament, I always read the Torah. And in the Torah, it's not that she was with child, okay? This is just a little interpretation difference. It was that, and they called it the period of women, okay? The monthly menstruation of women. And the reason she said, let it not displease my Lord. And the reason that he would not make her get up or help her get down or anything was because the law prevented men from coming into contact with menstruating women. So I just thought that was interesting. And it's either Leviticus or Numbers, I think, whatever. It's clearly made a law in Moses' time. That is a law that they could not come into contact, and women had to leave the camp until they were done. So I just thought that would be interesting. Now, all right. Now there's some other things about Jacob lamenting with Laban, and if it had not been for the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and your regard for Isaac, which have been on my side, surely you would have sent me away now empty. God saw my toil and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last evening. Okay. Now, the third story has to do with, okay, it has to do with building a altar and making promise. Laban and Jacob established a covenant between the two of them. All right. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. And what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne? Now, therefore, and the thing about it is, he couldn't make the daughters turn back, because remember, the daughters did not like Laban. Laban had, well, maybe not physically abused them, but they didn't like them. So he sees Laban sees he can't make them turn back. So he said, okay, now therefore come, let us make a covenant, I and you, and let it be for a witness between me and you. So Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said to his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jigar Sahadutha, the pillar of witness. But Jacob called it Gilead, or Gilead, not Gilead. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you, me, and you this day. Therefore, he called its name Gilead, and a watchtower. For he said, let the Lord watch between me and you, because we are parting from one another. If you despise my daughters, or if you shall take other wives besides my daughters, now no man is with us. See, God only is witness between me and you. And Laban said to Jacob, behold, this heap, wait a minute, which I have set between me and you, this heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this pillar against you, and that you also shall not pass over this pillar against me, or this heap for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor and the God of our forefathers judge between us. And Jacob swore by the reverence of his father Isaac. Then Isaac offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat food and spent the night on the mountain. And early in the morning, Laban rose up, kissed his grandsons and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban returned and went to his country. Oh, hold on just a minute. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, what they were talking about here, and it basically happens in the Bible a lot, but I'm told that it also happens, and they talked about Syria. Today in Syria, people will go to shrines and pray for whatever, pray for the sick, whatever, and then they will build, they will gather stones, put them together, and it's called cairns, CAIRNS. And so I just thought I'd put these pictures in here. If you notice here, there's plenty of them, and that was a witness to an agreement, or in the shrines it was a kind of like a sacrifice, but anyway, that's what they were talking about. And they're kind of like mini altars, really. They don't burn anything on them, and they are what they're called, heaps of stones. And that's what the covenant between Jacob and Laban was sealed with, basically, was this heap of stones. Okay, so we have the three little stories, the speckled animals, the idols, and now the covenant and the agreement, the cairns. And so kind of kind of to end or conclude here, because we are looking at Jacob's spiritual journey, and and though it's fun to look at the physical aspects of the sheep and how was it done and whatnot, we're looking at the spiritual, and the fact that God advises and protects Jacob throughout his journey. And especially when we're looking at the spiritual journey, in traditional Bible settings, Jacob is considered wicked. I mean, he's wicked. He was deceiver, not perceived as a really good person, but that's because people don't well, they don't think about the culture, and they also don't look at the spiritual side of things, and because God advised him, told Jacob he would protect him just like he did Abraham, and so the spiritual his spiritual journey. All right, remember he was born the twin, all right, and he was holding on to the heel of Esau. Now, that really could be the start of his spiritual journey, because remember, when he was born, Rebecca, well, actually, before they were born, they were just really stirring up like babies do, kicking and whatnot. And God came to Rebecca and told Rebecca that the elder would serve the younger. Okay, now that could have been part of his spiritual journey from the beginning. Okay, then as he grew up, there wasn't any like direct or dreams, but he did take on the qualities of he stayed in his tent, he studied, he read, he learned from Isaac about the God and everything. And Esau didn't. Remember, Esau wasn't interested. And so so then he did deceive his father, but let's remember, it was Rebecca's idea that he deceive his father. And where did that idea come from Rebecca? Well, because God came to her and said, well, also said that there would be two great nations, but here the main thing was that the elder would serve the younger. So it's not, it's not right or wrong or anything, but that is what she was led her to do that. Okay, and so Jacob received the blessing, and then with Jacob's, and we say Jacob's ladder, all right, then God appeared to Jacob and renewed the covenant that he had made with Abraham, and now it was Jacob's descendants that were going to be God's chosen ones and the examples. So again, that's his spiritual development, and then he went back. Remember, he was running away from Esau because Esau had threatened to kill him. So he's running away from Esau, and they said, okay, you need to meet a wife of your people, not the strange people where we live, okay, right now. So so he went back to the homeland, and as soon as he got there, as soon as he got there was Rachel, essentially. And once again, it was a spiritual kind of thing. It's kind of like we do. He knew that Rachel was for him. Okay. So and then he goes to Laban, he lives in his house, and then he's deceived by Laban, and Laban gives him Leah, to the older daughter, to wed, and he knows Rachel was the one. He knew it in his mind. All right. And so he agreed to serve. First it was 7 years, that was not a problem. And then it was seven more to keep her, to be able to keep her as his wife and everything. So, and then these stories just serve to show Jacob's deepening faith. And next week, we'll have the story of how Jacob wrestled with the angel and whatnot on his way back home.
And now let's see.
So I'm going to that will be summed up for tonight, and I'm going to take the share off, and I muted everybody because there was some noise, but unmute so that you can have something to say.